Did it not go?
There it is. Nice.
All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Here's Johnny.
Vanity. Definitely my favorite sin.
I am the devil, and I am here to do the devil's work.
The power of Christ compels you!
This is my boomstick.
What's your favorite scary movie?
What up, horror heads, and welcome to Shiver, a horror movie podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Daniel DeBona.
And I'm David Ulloa.
And we are here this week to kick off our fantastic fan fest, the second summer that we are doing this. I'm coming to you live from Fort Walton. I'm on vacation now, so the lighting's not the best if you watch us live, but I'm here. And we've been gone a couple weeks. We had some vacations. We had your AC broke. I had a sinus infection. It's been a lot going on, but we're back now, and we're going to kind of bridge the gap between Sensational Slasher Summer and Fantastic Fan Fest with one that my very own mom suggested, and I sat down and watched with her last night. We're going to be talking Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
Oh, yes.
And, man, this is definitely a movie that somebody made. Right, so, I mean, when we look at this movie, we get started, and we get the story of Christopher Robin, and he eventually grows up and has to leave all his friends, and well, then they become serial killers. Is kind of so. I mean, did this movie work at all for you, Dave? Did it ever scare you? I mean, tell me what you think about it, just kind of overall.
All right, so it didn't work for me. I was somewhat excited for this. Because I am unusually interested in copyright law, particularly as it pertains to Disney. Because you can actually, and that's one of the important things about this movie is that in 2022, Winnie the Pooh, as written by A.A. Milne, fell into what's the term I'm looking for?
Public domain.
Public domain. Thank you. When that happened, anything that was Winnie the Pooh, but not Disney's Winnie the Pooh, became basically fair game for anyone to make anything. You can actually track the way the laws change for copyright.
Yeah.
With when Mickey Mouse's copyright is up. It's really interesting. Yeah, you can track this because it used to be a much shorter period of time for a copyright, and as that amount of time was about to expire, Disney would put a whole bunch of legal people into action and get it changed, like at the federal level.
Right.
So I was really interested in this because it's like, okay, they can't touch any of the Disney stuff.
Right.
So it can't be, the Disney Winnie the Pooh stuff, but it can be the Milne stuff. And as a kid who grew up reading this stuff, I was very interested because as a fan of Winnie the Pooh, not just as a child, but today, like I will flat out tell you that Winnie the Pooh fucking rocks.
Yeah.
Right? I was excited. And as a fan of horror, I was also excited. Right. This would be like watching a Batman movie that is flat out horror, because the closest we've come to it is Batman Begins. And I thought that was fantastic, the way that they treated fear and the Joker and all, not the Joker, Scarecrow. Thank you. And all that stuff. It was fantastic the way it was done. So I'm ready for, my childhood to, as many people said, to be ruined.
Right.
I love that sort of thing. This was just bad, though. I very rarely get the feeling to turn movies off. It has happened before. when it comes to Shiver, I never ever do this. I
Right.
always watch all the way through so that I can give a proper review and we can talk about the movie intelligently, even if the movie is not presented in an intelligent way. I thought about it for this. I was like, man, you know what? If I just turn this off and just read a synopsis, no one will ever know. And I decided not to do that, but wish I had.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm with you on the fascinating idea of copyright law and then people taking these things. I mean, I've always been on board for this stuff. I'm a big fan of the Pride and Prejudice and Zombies book, Sense and Sensibility and Sea Monsters. You know, like I always love that idea of taking this thing that exists and then altering it and kind of making it something very different from what the original was. And I'm also with you on the fact that, yeah, no, this one did not work. This was rough. This was a tough watch. There were a lot of things. I ended up kind of doing some looking into the copyrights of how the different parts of Winnie the Pooh fall into what they were allowed to use and what they were not.
Right.
From what I could best kind of ascertain today, just the idea of Winnie the Pooh and his basic, compatriots from the original Owl, Rabbit, Piglet, and Eeyore, that fell out of copyright. From what I could tell from reading today, Tigger is a Disney creation addition to the A.A. Milne mythos.
So not he isn't a Disney creation as far as I can tell, but his first appearance was in 1928, so he is still protected by copyright.
Okay, so it's just that he showed up later.
Right, exactly. So I mean, he didn't become like this powerhouse until Disney.
Right. Okay, so we don't get any Tigger in this movie, which was disappointing. And then it's also, and I guess the way that we picture Winnie the Pooh and Piglet and stuff like that, the pink shirt or the red shirt, no pants, that type of stuff is the still copyrighted Disney version of Winnie the Pooh. So we get Winnie the Pooh in Timberlands and overalls and a plaid shirt.
Yeah.
We
get the Friday the 13th Part 2 version of Winnie the Pooh.
Exactly. I mean, Piglet apparently was actually like part warthog.
That was weird.
The way that he grew up. I mean, I feel like there was a lot of potential here to have more fun with it. And I feel like the biggest swing and a miss here is the shot that they didn't take, which would have been making something campy. I think that the biggest problem here is they went with no camp. They tried to make a straight up like Texas Chainsaw Massacre like style slasher that was just supposed to be horrifying and just gory and it just didn't work. Like the fun here could have been little like a little silly catchphrase or just something. There was potential here for fun to be had in this. But instead they decided to try to just go polar opposite of Winnie the Pooh and make it really hardcore. And it didn't click. No. They set up, an interesting story and then just like shit just kept happening that didn't make any sense. And
that is my biggest issue.
Like, and as we get into the story and some of the characters and stuff, just every once in a while, be like, wait, why? What? How is that possible?
I found that I hit rewind more than once, to find out how we got there, wherever there was, and most times there wasn't enough of a suggestion, to figure that out. Sometimes there was, and it was something that I had missed because it was, dark or something like that, and we'll get to that. But You're right. I think that to make this a comedy horror would have been immensely improved over what we got. And I think that that's part of this is that, listen, I hate taking a dump on anyone's hard work.
Right,
And
exactly.
whether or not we like this, even whether or not it is objectively good or bad, someone put a lot of people put a lot of hard work into this. So I hate dumping on a movie, but that's what's going to happen for the next, hour and 15 minutes here.
Yeah.
It's just not good. It doesn't work. Nothing about it actually works. And you've touched upon like already some of my biggest issues here. And I think that, we should just dive right in
Let's
and
do
move
it.
on to, the first thing we always talk about, which is story. So the story here, was there any aspect of this that you enjoyed? Once you say no, you can tell me the issues that you had with this story.
So I will say that when this movie very first started, I had a glimmer of hope that there was going to be something I enjoyed about the story, because I did enjoy the concept of he left to go to school and then they were left to their own devices, but they didn't know how to take care of themselves, and so they essentially became feral.
Mhm.
That is where my like of the story ended, was just right there. And none of that was even really the movie. That was just kind of
It's the
presented in,
setup.
yeah, that was presented in, like, it was like a set of sketches at the very top.
Mhm.
And so I was like, okay, maybe there's some potential here. But then after that, no. Just so many things. So Christopher Robin goes back to the 100-Acre Woods. He's taking his wife, who's like, I don't believe you, but I love you, and I believe
But
that.
is she his wife?
I,
Because we get conflicting information here, where he
yes,
says you're soon to be, or we're soon to be, like Christopher and whatever the fuck her name was, Robin.
right,
And then later he calls her his wife. And if
correct.
you look at the Wikipedia, it says his wife.
Yeah,
So that line doesn't make any sense.
yeah. And then, immediately they come out of the gate and it's like, okay, nope, we're killing her and we're capturing you. And then it's like, all right, now jump into this chick who we get this bizarre B story about how she had to, her therapist was like, oh, you need to get away for a little while. And even though when the credits rolled, what we got was newspaper after newspaper after newspaper talking about the creatures of the 100-Acre Wood or awful things that were happening around there, her and her friends still decide that renting a cabin there is where they need to go to have a relaxing getaway. And then
that also you're touching upon something, because I listen, it's both going to be bad, so I'm just going to keep like chugging away here. All right, it seemed like in that setup, or it's like, all right, great, we're getting that like Texas Chainsaw, like shit happens out here,
right,
and like you're gonna get. They even stopped at like the roadside gas
the
station,
small town gas station,
where you got the only guy who didn't speak in a British accent. He's like some dude from like South Carolina. Like, I don't know what the fuck is going on here, right?
Yeah.
And then he doesn't warn them.
Right.
It's like, when this movie was written, and it was written and directed by the same guy. I can't remember his name right now. Reese.
I was gonna say it's Reese something.
Reese Frakes.
Waterfield.
Thank you. I was in the process of looking it up. He knew what the tropes were because he had seen enough horror movies.
Right.
But I have the feeling that maybe he watched all of them when he was stoned in college and couldn't remember what the trope actually was. He was like, oh yeah, she's got to stop at a gas station.
Right.
Great. He got that. There's got to be like the small town yokel who like kind of sort of helps her out, but not really. Great. He's got that. what does he help her out with? It's like that fucking left his mind, and he was like, no, we're just gonna bump into some characters here that we're not gonna see again, and I'm gonna have to fucking like Wikipedia to find out who the fuck these people are when I see them later in the story.
Exactly. And so we get all that. Then we get this story of how there's like one of them who rode separately because she's always running behind or something. She's the first one to meet her demise. But then it's like
she's also like 10 minutes behind them.
Yeah. But it's
Like,
also
how
like
behind is she?
they just never think of her again. Like they get to the cabin, like, all right, everybody put your phones away, no phones, we're unplugging. And it's like, you still have a friend who hasn't made it.
Right.
And so shouldn't you, like be ready to check up on her and just everything about it. I was just thing after thing that didn't make any sense. It was so weird. And it was, I don't know. I guess, they were trying to, it's like, all right, well, we've got the one chick who's like really conceited. So she's got to take all her pictures for Instagram. And we've got the couple and, ooh, look, we're progressive and we have a same sex couple. And, but then it was just, I don't know. Like I said, the whole like little B storyline about how she was so traumatized because of this stalker who broke into her house, which that might have been the scariest part of the whole damn movie.
Yeah.
Was the fact that she had this stalker who was like, who evolved from peeping Tom into actually coming into her bedroom and trying to undress her. But then it's like there was,
what I was waiting for? I was waiting for this guy to be like a serial stalker.
Right.
To somehow have stalked Christopher Robin and found out about these like imaginary creatures in his mind and then used it to torture him and then somehow stumbled upon her again.
Oh, there we go.
And so it's actually just him and another friend in costumes.
Okay.
And I was like, oh man, like if that's where this is going, fucking fantastic. This is really cool. Of course it wasn't.
Yeah. But, so like I said, but then there was like this bizarre, I don't know. It's like they expected me to think that her trauma from the stalker was the reason why she wouldn't just like get in the car and leave. Like I couldn't figure out how I was supposed to transfer her trauma from the stalker into the way that she was handling this situation, other than the fact that she's like, oh, I've got a gun. And in one of the truly funniest moments in the movie that was not at all supposed to be funny, it's this quaint little girl who's like, oh, I've got a gun, and goes to her underwear drawer and she's got the goddamn Dirty Harry.
Yeah. What the fuck is that? I was expecting like a little pop gun, like a 22 or something. Here she comes with a fucking Desert Eagle, and I'm like, holy shit! I felt like the yellow bastard in Sin City. I'm like, you can't even lift that cannon.
My mom immediately goes, that's because that's what she goes. That's what British people think all Americans own.
Right.
And so just all of these things kept snowballing, and just none of it made any sense.
And let's go back to that about none of it making any sense. I've only casually looked into how difficult it is to actually own a gun in England.
Right.
My understanding is it is damn near impossible to own a gun in England.
Especially a handgun.
Especially a handgun with the firepower to like blow off someone's fucking skull, like everything.
Yeah.
Right. So like,
it's so because yeah, that's immediately that's my dad. He goes, I'm pretty sure in like England you can only own like a long gun, and it's still a process to get it.
Yeah, like you have to prove that you're going to use it for like pheasant hunting.
Yeah, that thing would have turned a pheasant into a poof of feathers and smoke. And so, and like there, and then I get that that Pooh and Piglet are, supposedly these sentient creatures who learn to fend for themselves. But who taught them how generators work?
Or how cars work.
Or how cars work. Or like not only how generators work, it's not like they just pulled the cord. Like, okay, they had this camp full of Airstreams, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're going, okay, so they've caught some campers, and yeah, maybe some of them had generators. No. They had learned how to make their own electricity with an exercise bike.
Right.
Like, if being sentient is one thing, that's higher level knowledge. Like,
the other thing is, like, if they are capable enough to create all of this
Right.
little, this little community that they live in, why did they have to resort to eating Eeyore in the first place?
Right.
It's only been 5 years. Are you to expect me to believe that they learned all of this in the 4.5 years since they ate Eeyore? I mean, what the fuck is going on here? Because either they're smart enough and capable enough to get by on their own, or they're not.
Right.
To me, that didn't make any sense. The other thing that didn't make any sense is, and I realize that they're presented as sketches in the style of Milne, which I appreciated. That's one of the few things I did actually, I'm not going to say like, because I didn't actually like it, but I did appreciate that. They go from these like little adolescent, cute little creatures to these giant man-size animals.
Yes.
How does that happen?
Yeah.
Like, again, there's no explanation given. It's just like, well, this is what they look like now, and I can't move past it.
Right. Yeah, this is it. This is a movie that fumbled the suspension of disbelief bag, like really, really. Well, like,
Right.
I mean, just fumbled the hell out of it.
There's movies where, like, there's a degree of, okay, well, it doesn't really matter if that didn't make that much sense.
Right.
Because you're dealing in the realm of the supernatural, or, something like that. I think the perfect example for this, and a lot of people disagree, is Halloween 3. There's a lot of things that happen, and you're like, but why? But they make just enough sense where you're like, okay, well, I can understand why someone might do that, or why that might be the next thing to happen. Is it the most logical? Maybe not, but we're also dealing with fucking like wizards and magic and shit, right? I always go back to the Superman example, right? Like, you tell me that a man can fly because of the radiation of the sun, and that he's got super skin and, super this and super that. Fantastic. What makes him weak? Exposure to the same, planet that he came from. Great. I can buy that. Don't break those fucking rules, though.
Right.
If you tell me that these creatures are like these weird sort of like supernatural creatures that lived in a wood, got you. That they were these tiny little emaciated things when Christopher Robin left them, great. How now in 5 years have they become these gigantic monsters?
Yes, now they're 6 feet tall.
Now you've broken your rule, because you didn't set a rule. You just kind of like shot your shot.
Right,
and
especially
that's
because
what I have a problem with.
They tell the whole story about like how he grew up with them and he lived his whole life with them, and they never you've got to assume that 5 years ago, when he was like on the verge of like grown man leaving for college, that they hadn't become 6 feet tall and horrifying since he was still just hanging out with them. So why was it that Christopher Robin was able to spend 10 years of his life with them and they still remained, cute and fluffy? But then it was like 5 years of being on their own was just then all of a sudden they shot up. Yeah, it's all that type of stuff that just constantly doesn't make any sense. And like, so eventually they start killing off all these girls, and sure, I mean, in just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous, just fashion. Like Piglet chasing the girl in the pool.
That might have been the worst one.
That was so god awful, because just his little half-hearted swings down into the water until when all of a sudden she gets to the edge and just has to stand there and wait for him to catch up. Like, sweetheart, you're in waist deep water. Like, even you don't even have to be strong to get out of a pool. Like, at that point, like that just happens.
I was drunk for a week straight last week and managed to flop out of the pool like a beached whale. Every fucking time I wanted to get another fucking, margarita or another Bloody Mary, it didn't matter because you're weightless in water.
Right. I don't know. Like, it was all just so weird and so bizarre that the modicum of story that we got made no sense. Like there wasn't even enough here that once we got into just the slasher element, which was just survive the night, that it was, that I cared or that it was believable, because any idea of story that they presented us with never made any sense. It wasn't a story. It was just a big garbage bag of things that were happening.
Yeah, it's okay to be light on story, particularly it depends on the kind of movie that you are.
Right.
With a slasher, I think it's okay to be light on story. You don't need to have this incredible narrative to drive a slasher. You really don't. And I think the perfect example, we just got off of a month of slashers, is Slumber Party Massacre.
Right.
Slumber Party Massacre is an awful lot of fun, and the story makes just enough sense. Like there's only enough story to make it work, and the rest is like, hey, here's some really cool kills, and here's some jokes. That's great. That's fine. And we didn't give it an awfully high rating, but
Right.
we had a good time. This story, the way I put it to my wife, who asked, so how was it when it was done? I said, every character could have replaced their lines of dialogue with the words goo goo gaga, and it would have made exactly the same amount of sense. Because nothing that anyone said in this story mattered.
Right.
Why are you doing this? What's going on? What's happening? I mean, they have the most like imbecile people in the fucking world. And the only way that happens is by design. You wrote characters who don't know how to think. In fact, it's the opposite of thinking. It's like reverse thinking. It's like, what is the worst thing that I could possibly do? Again, we go back to the line from Scream. It's always some girl running upstairs instead of running out the front door. Right? It's this, but worse, because she's not running upstairs. She's running into a pool.
Yes.
Right. And then she's not getting out of the pool and running around once he's in there, because you think, okay, she's goaded him into the pool. Right. Now he's big and fat and pig-like, and he's got this fucking hammer, and he's got to like take longer than she does as a spry young woman to get out of the pool. Right. No, she didn't do that. She just, like you said, waded into the back of the pool, which, by the way, the pool's not deep.
No.
Why is she not standing and running out of the pool? I can't explain anything here, man.
And they try to give us like this, and I mean, I know we'll talk about the killers later, but they try to give us like a little bit of like mental instability as related to Winnie the Pooh or whatever, and it was just, and it just just kind of came out of nowhere, and it came and went, and then that was it. I don't know, man. Like I said, we've done plenty of movies that have like you said, not a lot of story, but at least what they give us makes some sense. And what we got here just didn't make any sense.
None at all. And then the idea that every character that was introduced somehow gets reintroduced. But I had to remind myself who these characters were, because once they finally escape the house, and there's only 3 of them left alive, right?
Yeah, they killed the most memorable one was like the second one to go.
Yeah, with the car.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say it was a good death, but it at least was something that I hadn't seen in a horror movie before.
Right.
I had seen cars be used as weapons, but not in that way. And maybe it's because it's so obvious, because I think horror movies try to be inventive with their kills, particularly slashers. I hadn't seen that before. So, at least kudos for that, but it wasn't done well.
Right.
But when they leave, they end up somehow stumbling upon their like hideout in the 100-acre woods, which does not. Here's the other thing. Geographically, how does everything work here? Because there's a rule in comics that oh my God, not Joe Simon, the other Captain America guy, and I'm fucking the King, Jack Kirby. What the fuck is going on with me today? right? And Joe Simon was fucking Superman. He wasn't Captain America. Anyway, Jack Kirby once said that when he draws, the rule that he keeps in mind is one panel must lead into the next panel so that you understand how we got from here to here, right? That's his rule. And I think that's a great rule because I've never read a Jack Kirby comic and thought, well, how the fuck did Thor get from there to there? And what's going on from here to here? And that happened all the time in this movie, right? Like there's one point where Winnie the Pooh in the middle of the 100-acre woods drops what he's doing, looks to the side, and leaves. And I'm like, what did he hear? I didn't fucking hear anything. Right. And they do kind of give you the suggestion that his hearing is rather good. But every other time you actually hear what it is that he's hearing. Right. And then he shows up in the back of that girl's picture.
Right.
What the fuck? You know, and then she's having like a weird, like it's not a photo shoot because she's just being sexy by herself in her room.
Right.
Now, granted, I am not a sexy 19-year-old girl.
Correct.
I have never been a sexy 19-year-old girl. So I don't know what sexy 19-year-old girls do in the bedrooms of their Airbnbs.
Right. It might be commonplace to put on a full face of makeup to get in a hot tub by yourself. And I've just never lived that life.
Right. So I don't know if it's normal to like booty dance to yourself to the loudest iPhone speakers I've ever heard. But that was not normal to me. I thought I that was the first moment that I rewound and I was like, okay, well, she has to be like on OnlyFans or something, right? And she's streaming live. Because I was like, okay, well, that's what would make sense to me. That's why she's getting all sexy. No. She was looking at herself in like a little like makeup mirror, and then she's just sitting on the bed dancing. There's no one else in the room.
Right.
Didn't make any fucking sense. And then you see in your camera that fucking Winnie the Pooh is behind you. And then your thought is, fuck it. No, what the who thinks this? Like that goes against like our sense of preservation.
Right.
And at that moment is when the light outside starts to flicker. Dude, read the fucking signs. No one is that illiterate that they can't read those signs.
Right.
You know? So anyway, they get to the 100-acre woods, which might be, you know, in their backyard. It might be, you know, 100 miles away or kilometers. Cause I guess we're in England. They never really say, right. I don't know. Cause we have, you know, Larry, the cable guy fucking running the gas station.
The gas station that has no gas and just a couple of cars that have like underbrush like growing over them, so they've obviously just been sitting there for a while.
Well, what do you expect when there's no gas? The car's got nowhere to go, right? So they get there and then they find a character who is totally unrecognizable from the total of 3 seconds that she appeared earlier in the movie, where we did not get her name, we did not get her husband's name, and then she's like, yeah, they took me, which we didn't see, and they killed my husband, which we didn't see.
Right.
And now this character is supposed to matter for approximately 4 minutes. Why? Why does that character, who we have never seen except for that one little 5-second scene, right? Why does she get to take the gun, the Desert Eagle, which no Brit has ever shot ever, right? And get to have a showdown with Piglet?
Right.
It made absolutely no sense. I stopped the movie so I could look up and see who the fuck is this character, because she was so beaten beyond recognition, I couldn't tell who she was. And even if she hadn't been, even if she had looked exactly the way she looked when we saw her, I wouldn't have remembered her.
Yeah, it was that whole thing, and it's like, okay, and for some reason they've decided she's the one that they're going to talk to or talk around, so she knows that they can speak, which is knowledge that we didn't have.
Well, we were told the opposite. The narrator, who is omniscient, tells us that they vowed never to speak again because they were eschewing their humanity.
Right.
So why are they speaking then?
Yeah, like, especially, it only seems to be the two of them you know, like we're led to believe that Owl and Rabbit are still in the wind somewhere.
Right.
Because there's only the one grave. We do see the R.I.P. Eeyore grave with his tail pinned up on it. Nice little touch.
Yeah.
But we never, like, why even have all four of them in that opening scene if there is never again going to be a mention of Rabbit or Owl?
I think it's long game, and we're setting up a sequel.
Yeah, I mean, it did end with, you know,
has to be.
Winnie the Pooh will return or whatever. But it was just, man, there was just so few things that made it. Like, okay, so random blonde from the gas station. You're right. She takes the Desert Eagle. She fires one shot just out into the woods, you know, to get attention or whatever. Then all of a sudden, the gun doesn't work anymore. And as my dad pointed out, revolvers don't tend to jam. So this woman seems to have just had one bullet loaded in her big gun.
Well, you should only have to use one. if we're being honest, you know, America. But like, you know, that's if you need more than one, you shouldn't own the thing.
Right.
But
Fair.
she shouldn't own it at all logically because she's not American, she's British, and she can't fucking get this gun.
It's just so. I mean, you know, as we keep moving forward here, we're already kind of into it. Just we do get a handful of characters in this movie, and you know, for what sense they do and don't make. I mean, what did you think about the people that we're presented with here?
Listen, I hated every fucking one of them.
Yeah.
All right.
Fair.
All of them. Christopher Robin seemed like a fucking punk.
Yep.
All right. And I'm just going to put this out there. I'm not always on the up and up on what you can and cannot say anymore. All right. He's a fucking pussy.
There we go.
Okay. I don't know if you can say that anymore. If you can't, I'm sorry. And we'll find something else to say, but that's what he is. Okay. Yep. Because he's all gung-ho about these guys, which he left high and dry.
Right.
Now, if he didn't, and he explained to them, and they still turned, then he's got to be a fucking man and be like, hey, I told you what the fuck was happening. Put that mallet down and come here and talk to me like a man.
Right.
But he didn't do that. No.
Yeah.
He was like, please, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm like, no, what the fuck is that?
And then puts it on them like, oh, the world wouldn't have understood. I had to leave you out here on your own. No one would understand.
Then why didn't you teach them and give them the tools so that they wouldn't turn into these rabid animals? Listen, nothing about him made any fucking sense. I didn't care. 1, 2, 3, name a number of shits. I didn't give it. For his wife, not wife, whoever the fuck she was. All right. Didn't care about her. That may have been the worst acting in the whole movie. I'm glad that we did not see them for long. Right. And then once you get to the newer characters, I will say at least they were nice to look at.
Fair.
All right. So, you know, this is something else that was it Waterhouse, Water News,
Water News is from Monsters Inc. What
it is? Yeah. What? Waterfield?
Oh yeah,
Waterfield. Yeah.
Yes, Waterfield.
At least he got that.
Yes.
You know that you gotta have your hot girls, right? He had that, but these characters did not do anything for me. Not one of them. It didn't make any sense. Right. Nothing about these characters made any sense, and it's because they were so one-dimensional. They were flatter than I don't know, man, like this sheet of paper. They were flatter than this, all right? And that is pretty fucking flat, and it's bent, and it's still flat, right? So, like, I just I can't say anything positive about the characters here. The characters were not well written. The acting was not good.
Nope.
Unfortunately. I can tell that there were attempts at doing something with the material. I'm always going to give actors their credit. They're on fucking strike right now trying to get their fucking dues. So, you know, all fucking praise to actors, but this was just not good. I can't think of a single thing that I can say positive about
No.
any one of the actors.
It made, so we start with like you said, Christopher Robin and his maybe wife. They're neither one of them, makes any sense or does a great job. Then we get the chick who's not Lindsay Lohan, even though she looked remarkably like Lindsay Lohan. And she, of course, just follows all the tropes. It's like, oh, your car's right there and probably still running. Like, you could have just jumped back in that and taken off. But, oh, there's an abandoned shack over there. I should just run to that. We get the girl who sees Winnie the Pooh in the picture and is like, forget it. I'm in the hot tub. It's okay. We get the girl who can't figure out how to get out of the pool. We get, the girl who is so traumatized by her stalker that she has this Desert Eagle, but allows just a stranger to take it from her with no struggle. We've got, at least I think the most depth we got out of a character was from the girl who kills Piglet. And like, there was actually some emotion in her, like, wrecking Piglet with that sledgehammer to get revenge for what he did to her girlfriend. That was probably the most emotion and acting and that made any sense that we got anywhere in this movie. It was all just so bizarre. And the lesbian couple and the girl who had been haunted by the stalker, the three of them were just completely interchangeable. I was never 100% sure which one I was actually looking at.
I only knew their names insofar as they were occasionally shouted at another character.
There we go. See, that's more.
One of them was Maria. One of them was. No, that's it. That's all I got.
Yeah,
one of them was Maria.
Exactly. And then, like I said, look, just straight up, it's a summer slasher, right? So I mean, the teenage boy in me coming out, the one that I wanted to look at the most, didn't make it very long. She just come on, like, if you're gonna do this to me, at least let the eye candy hang around a little bit. It was right. You're right. There was nobody in this that I took any time to care about. I'm pretty sure that the guy from the gas station at the beginning is one of the ones who shows up in the truck full of drunk guys.
Yes. Yeah. He does with three other guys we've never met before, but they behave like they know these girls.
Right, exactly. Or like they seem to, just be 100 Acre Woods bumpkins, but they're the guys who are going to protect, whoever from whatever is going on.
And they all dress like they've just come from a rodeo in Houston.
Yes. Also, ridiculously eclectic group of guys. Like,
England is rather eclectic in its citizenry, but
you had Crocodile Dundee, you had gas station guy, you had the Chicano guy, and then you had the guy that was like maybe Middle Eastern.
In fact, the guy that to me seemed the most British was the guy who was like either Pakistani or Indian or whatever he was. He was some sort of, either like Near East or Middle East, and I have no idea what the fuck was going on with any of them. Like, how the hell did that, like, what's that Mexican gang, M38 or M36?
Yeah. And
how the fuck did he get there?
The one with the baseball bat and the jailhouse tattoos.
Yeah, like, I'm sorry. I mean, maybe it's just that I'm not British enough, and I don't understand the complexities of British country yokels. Maybe that's it. Maybe I just don't. But I've seen a lot of Downton Abbey. All right. And I've seen a lot of The Crown, and fuck if you can stop me from watching Bridgerton. I've never seen anyone who looks like these fucking dudes on here. At least not together.
It was just when it came to the characters, like you said, there was just, I didn't care. Like, I didn't care about any of them. I wasn't invested in seeing them survive because I cared about them. I wasn't invested in seeing them die because they were assholes.
Mhm.
You know, there are a lot of reasons to care about the death of a character in a slasher, and I just didn't care about why any of these characters were there or care that they died.
Yeah.
It just none of it. Again, just none of it made any sense. It was so bizarre when you look at the story and you look at the characters here. I don't know this Reese Waterfield guy from Adam. I don't know this dude. If he were to walk in my front door right now, I'd have no idea. But after watching this movie, the feeling I get from looking at the story and the characters here is that he was under the impression that people were going to be so shocked and so impressed by the fact that he turned Winnie the Pooh into a horror movie that he just phoned in the rest. Like, he was like, this is $1 million idea. This is all that matters. And now we've just got to get it on the screen. I don't care how. I mean, this is what happens when all of those late drunken nights when you're like 19, 20 in college with your friends are sitting around. This is what happens when you actually find somebody to finance the time that me and my friends had thought we came up with the best idea ever for Scream 4 when the sequels were supposed to be done after 3, and we drunkenly stayed up all night and like storyboarded a Scream 4 movie, and we're like, this is it. This is all that matters. But we didn't have anybody to finance us, and didn't know anybody. So then it died there. But this guy apparently knew people, and that was just he really thought that just the idea that he had the chutzpah to turn Winnie the Pooh into horror was going to skyrocket this thing to the moon.
And you know what? It kind of did, because he made the movie for $100,000.
Right.
All right. When you consider that this movie was done for $100,000, I believe it.
Yeah. Also,
it's because it's not good, and the production value is quite low. But although $5 million is not a lot of money when you're talking about movies and box office, when your input is 100,000 and your output is 5 million, this movie made a lot of money.
Yeah,
when you think of it that way.
This movie
so he wasn't wrong.
Right. It currently has like a 3 or a 6 on Rotten Tomatoes.
It's a 3, yeah.
Yeah, but it has made more money than I'll ever see in my life. And so it's so weird sometimes. And like you said, you're right. It did work. So I mean, I guess kudos to him for it. I'd like to imagine that he had to know at a certain point in making it, or even before it got made, when he just had a script, that something like Shiver was eventually going to look at it and just rip it apart. But hell, we can rip it apart, and he can sit on his $4.9 million or whatever and live that life. So good for him.
Yeah, so I can't necessarily say that I fault the guy, because if I had a way to turn $100,000 into $5 million, I would take it.
Oh yeah, like if somebody were like, hey, the downside to you turning this 100,000 into 5 million is 2 dorks on the internet are gonna shit on you for 90 minutes. Be like, oh, okay,
go ahead. I don't give a fuck who they are.
Exactly.
My parents don't even listen to this. I do this for me. You think that Reese Waterfield cares what I have to say? Of course not.
Right.
So I don't fault him for it, but because it is in the webosphere, it is able to be talked about, and it's just fucking terrible. And I think, I don't know what's worse, the story or the characters. Like, they are right there, neck and neck. They're both just atrocious.
Yeah. I'm with you.
And the only two characters that we didn't talk about, and we did this specifically because we do this every time we've got a slasher, are Pooh and Piglet, right? Our slasher killers here. So this is at once a very familiar Pooh and Piglet. Pooh does wear a red shirt. That's about where the similarity ends. He is yellow, right?
Right.
And then we've got Piglet, also does wear a pink shirt. That's about where the similarity ends, right? Did these killers work for you?
No. I mean, I will give them they weren't scary. They tried their best to kind of take these childhood icons and make them kind of scary. But they were boring.
Yeah.
They were there. Like I said, any chance that Piglet had of being intimidated was completely demolished by that pool scene.
Mm-hmm.
Where he can just kind of barely swing that sledgehammer, even though the water's only waist high. And knowing nothing about making a movie, there had to be another way to shoot those shots other than the underwater, where we could see just how lightly he was kind of tapping the surface of the water with that sledgehammer. They can do a hell of a hog tie. They hog tied the shit out of that girl.
Yeah.
They had it together there. Don't do a gag well. The burlap came. She got that right out of her mouth with no problem. But they were just.
I will say, was that maybe a suggestion at how good she is with her mouth?
There we go.
Was there a bit of subtle storytelling there? Yeah, I don't think so. I think it was lazy writing, but maybe.
And it was just, I don't know, like why did Pooh rip that one girl's shirt off? I mean,
no sense.
I get from the perspective of you're making a slasher and it's like, hey, everybody, here's your tits. But why would he do that? It didn't make any sense. Why did Winnie the Pooh have a whip made out of what my mom referred to as the most unconditioned hair of all time? Whose hair was that, and why did he have a whip made out of it?
Right.
We had not been led to at any point to believe that they torture these people. Also,
no, they're eating.
Yeah. Also, why the fuck, with 10 minutes left in this movie, was Winnie the Pooh suddenly some next level supernatural being with the strength of Luke Cage and the ability to control bees telepathically?
Okay, that's the one that for me was like, all right, you've never established how strong he is. So maybe you're showing me now in the laziest way possible. But the bee thing? He's Candyman now? What the fuck?
Right. It's just...
Let me tell you the scene that most bugged me. All right. And you tell me if it bugged you, because I know that it bugged me to a point that, like, I'm nitpicking, and I know I'm nitpicking, and I know I'm being a fucking asshole because it's bad, but is it as bad as I think it is? I mean, maybe, I don't know. But there's a scene where we have a profile shot, close up, of Winnie the Pooh eating honey.
Mm-hmm.
And all the fuck this guy's doing is fucking putting honey on his nose, on his snout. That's all he's doing. There's now one drop of honey getting into his mouth. And that, I think, goes back to an ill-conceived idea, which is the idea that Winnie the Pooh and Piglet are killers. Right? When all you have is Winnie the Pooh, Disney characters gone bad. And that's all you have.
Right.
This is the outcome, right? Because you have characters that are vaguely reminiscent of their Disney counterparts, different enough where Disney can not sue, right? But these masks are just that, they're masks.
Yeah.
There was never a point where I believed that was a bear. There was never
Correct.
a point where I believed that was a pig. I believed that they were dudes in masks. And to me, that was the biggest problem here, is that No one ever once, not any of these characters ever stopped and said, why the fuck is this guy wearing a demented bear mask? Like, they were all like, what is that thing? It's half bear. It's not half anything. It's a dude in a bear mask.
Yeah.
Like, they even like human hands on the thing.
Yes.
Like, what the nothing about these characters as killers made sense to me. You know, I think there's enough motivation here to turn them into you know, and what was the term? The people hating misanthropic, is it? I think, yeah, misanthropic people or misanthropic creatures. Sure, I can get on board with that, because let's say that someone forced me to eat you, Daniel. I would
Okay.
probably hate that person for putting me through that,
Fair.
right? Because I'd be losing a friend, and also because, like, I don't want to eat you, you know?
Yeah, it's just you're like, and even from a production standpoint, like, you know that these actors cannot articulate the mouths of these things because they are quite obviously rubber masks. You make the simple choice of just have him pour it in the mouth hole. Like, why have him smear it all over the face as if that's just a fucking thing that a bear would do?
Never.
And you're right. Yeah, it's nitpicking, but also, you're working with $100,000 budget. You know what your props are, and there is a whole. Just have him pour it. Then, if it kind of gets messy, it makes sense. Smearing it all over his face made no sense.
The other issue that I had here is that, and this is an issue that goes to the entire movie, but is I think a particular problem when it comes to Pooh and Piglet. The lighting and the cinematography in this movie are atrocious, and
Yes.
I think it's rare that we talk about the technical aspect of movie making on the show. I think we try to keep it a little lighter than that. Occasionally we do, like when we talk about an Ari Aster, we kind of have to,
Right.
because, like, this is the draw of the movie. But it was so bad that on occasion I could not tell whether it was Pooh or Piglet, and I don't
Correct.
think that was intentional. There were occasions where the lighting was so poor and the handheld camera, the shaky cam thing, was so bad that I actually couldn't tell what was going on.
Right.
To me, that is one of the most egregious mistakes that a horror movie can make, is when I can't see the horror.
Yeah.
I am not scared because I can't see the horror. We're not talking about something like an H.P. Lovecraft style, Cthulhu thing where it's like some incomprehensible thing that just cannot be explained, and so we see darkness. That's not it. We're talking about something that is so poorly lit and the camera is so poorly shot that I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, they were. I mean, and I've got to assume that they were kind of going with like the barroom lighting idea, which is like, maybe if we're never showing them in real bright light, people won't focus on the fact that these are obviously just rubber masks. Because, like you said, I mean, his hands were also just obviously human hands in like a yellow workman's glove.
Right.
I mean, like, and they zoomed in on those though a couple times. And it's like, yeah, that's just a leather glove. Like,
and there were times where the glove was not on.
yes, okay. I'm so happy you said that, because there were times when I was like, wait,
Are
was
those
that
fingernails?
Yeah,
those
was
are
that just a
fingernails.
normal dude's hand?
Yeah. Whoever was on continuity for this one was asleep at the wheel.
Yeah.
Listen, these I don't want to call them memorable, but I will remember how bad these killers were. And I have to think that any person who calls themselves a filmmaker has some sort of integrity, where they stand by the work and they're not just kind of cashing in checks. Because to me, then you're not a filmmaker. Then you're just like a business magnate. And I don't really think that that's who Reese Waterfield is. From the little that I was able to read about him, like he changed careers and wanted to make horror movies and started a horror movie production company, and has financed a couple of movies, and this is the first one that he shot. And so I think that this is really just like the freshman effort of someone who maybe isn't a good filmmaker, someone who had all the tools at his disposal and just dropped the ball again and again and again. And I don't want to discourage someone like that from making a sequel. It's going to happen. He's already
Right.
said there is a Winnie the Pooh 2. There's going to be a Bambi. There's going to be a Peter Pan.
Peter Pan.
And he's directing the Peter Pan. He's only producing the Bambi one. But I'm thinking, like, if this is the quality we're going to get out of them, just don't fucking make it, because I'm not going to watch it.
Yeah, it's like I was kind of looking at the same thing, and it's like, all right, well, he's not, and he didn't write the Peter Pan one from what I'm seeing. Like, he's gonna direct it, but didn't write it. So he's just trying to, and I guess credit where credit's due. He's trying to carve his niche, and he's gonna be the guy who turns these children's stories into horror movies, but. I'm going to go on record as saying unless there are some stellar reviews about those other two, like this isn't an 86 minutes I'm going to put myself through again.
No.
So, for all of the things that are bad, let's get to one more spot where maybe there can be the tiniest bit of redemption for this movie. As we're wont to do when we're doing slashers, we got to talk blood and boobs. So was there enough creativity or kills or just breasts to make this one any good?
I think you put it perfectly. I think it was in Laid to Rest, the last episode that we did, where you mentioned that there isn't enough sex to make a bad movie good.
Right.
There's no amount of sex you can interject into a movie to make it good. There is a certain amount of blood that you can put in a movie, a certain amount of gore that you can put in a horror movie to make it enjoyable. And that is the case here, where no, there's no amount of nudity, no matter how gratuitous, and I don't really think it is gratuitous here. There's one booby shot, is there?
Yeah.
Right. And it's a weird moment where it's like Winnie the Pooh is ripping a woman's shirt off, and it's not even done in a sexual way. It's just like, your shirt comes off. Okay, why? I don't know. And like the viewer in me was like, okay, I get that they're just showing like the customary boob,
right?
That we need to get in a slasher. So it's not like there was even a lot of that. That one boob is not enough to save a movie.
Correct.
I mean, this could have been, I don't know, pick someone like Scarlett Johansson's boob, and it would not have been enough to save the movie, right? Maybe Scarlett Johansson's boobs would have been enough to save the movie. Maybe. But there also was not enough gore and blood. And here's the thing, is that there was suggestions of heavy violence in this movie, but it was just that it was suggestion, because when you're working with $100,000, you really can't do much.
Right.
I mean, there's movies where like one effect might cost $100,000. One shot might cost $100,000. And these are big budget movies, like those Mission Impossible movies. That motorcycle jump, I don't know how much that cost, but it was insane because they did it like 7 times. So like that one shot cost them an insane amount of money. This whole movie cost them $100,000. So for that, I applaud you for making any movie for $100,000 these days. But the violence was no good. The only kill that I would say was above board was the running over the head with the car.
Right.
It was nice. I didn't expect to see her eye out of the socket. We don't see it pop out, right? There's not enough budget for that, but we do see the eye out of the socket. All the blood is CG.
Yes, yeah, it was
And
the excitement that I had
Mhm.
for seeing the eyeball out was immediately ruined by what was obviously CG blood as the tire crushed her head.
Yeah, in fact, I can think of one moment where I think like actual like stage blood was used, and it's when Winnie the Pooh is grinding up. Again, I don't understand why he grinds these people up, because it seems like what he eats is honey and not their like fluid stuff, like ground
Right,
up, human chuck. So I don't understand why they appear to be starving, even though number one, they're like, fat as fuck, right?
right.
But it is honey that he eats all the time. He really just uses the blood to soak his victims in,
I
maybe sometimes.
guess
I don't know. It didn't make sense
he
to me.
also only field dresses them from like eyes down. Like,
Right.
like there's eyes and a scalp left for all of them. They
Yeah.
look like that episode of Futurama where like their bodies were destroyed except for their heads, and they're trying
Yeah.
to bring them back.
Yeah, it's really I don't know, it's bizarre, man. Like nothing about the violence worked for me. Nothing about the sexuality. Like it was weird. Like the one character that was like hypersexual, it was weird because all of it was like with no context.
Right.
It was just
She wasn't
like
she wasn't she wasn't FaceTiming with her boyfriend or
no.
something.
She was just taking pictures, and for
Like you said,
who?
they could have very easily, she could have been an OnlyFans model.
Mhm.
And you change it to like Just Fans or something, and then you don't have to pay any
Right.
royalties. But
Mhm.
that one line, it would have made sense as to why she was doing what she was doing.
Right, and maybe that's what he had, what Waterfield had in mind when he wrote that. But I truly can't. There is no indication that anything was on his mind when he wrote anything in this movie,
Right.
because it's also asinine. It really is.
Yeah, it was just like so much of that was so bizarre. Like when we get that very first like kill that we see, the girl who gets put into the wood chipper, that moment that he dings her head like off of the chute to the wood chipper, like
Mhm.
I had a gasp, like I felt that one.
Yeah.
And he just pummels her head into this thing, and I was like, okay, so they're going hyper violence, right? Like
Mhm.
that's how we're gonna sell
But you
this.
couldn't see any of it.
But you couldn't see any of it. Then they immediately destroy how effective the violence in that scene was by giving us the really cartoonish, like her legs kicking as she goes down into the wood chipper. And then it's like, okay, well, yeah, he turned her to soup, but like this other part that's going on at the same time is comical.
Right.
And then they kind of did the same thing. They're like, here's a really cool scene of this girl's head getting run over, and it's like, yeah, I've never seen anything like that, right? But then we get the really cartoonish scene of just the stew that is her head left on the driveway, and we get those little blood spurts,
Yeah.
like shooting up from the middle of them, and it's like every time they do something kind of cool,
They kill it
they piss
immediately.
it away, yeah.
Mhm.
Like I said, the one bit of violence that I felt was effective was that girl taking out her frustrations on Piglet. I do feel like in that moment there was some validity to the violence, and that was the only time in the movie when what was going on made sense. Like you said, we get this woman whose face is beat beyond recognition, but why are we suddenly led to believe that they're torturing these people and chaining them up and just pummeling them?
Mhm.
Like we were never led to believe that they just get joy out of this, which is obviously
No.
what they were doing to this woman. And it just no, none of it made any sense. We finally get, and then you get the Pooh Bear hulking out scene, and he takes out this whole group of guys, and it was just like it was boring.
That was cool when Michael did it in Halloween Kills.
Right.
It was a great moment when that happened, and I know that that's what he was trying to replicate there. and it just didn't work. And to the point of the piglet scene, I'm still going to go ahead and say that scene didn't work for me, because although there seemed to be some genuine, or at least approaching genuine emotion there with that actress, um to me it didn't make any sense, because she hit him with a mallet that one time, or the sledgehammer,
Right.
the one time, and that apparently is enough to knock him out, long enough for her to drag his body, chain him up, and then wake him up. But then she hits him with that same sledgehammer with the same amount of intensity 4 times before he
Right.
actually gives in. I don't buy it, because you would think that he would be, he would have less stamina now that he's already been hit once on the head. And she hits him 3 times before he's like, I got to take a breather here. So to me, that scene didn't make any sense either. In fact, I was confused when I saw him tied up. I was like, wait, how the fuck did we get here? I
Right.
thought she just hit him. And I played it back and like, no, that's all that happened. She just hits him. And up until that moment, both he and Winnie the Pooh had shown like more than human strength, but not necessarily some sort of resilience, to the point that we see in him in that scene, and that we see in Pooh in the scene that follows that. So to me, it didn't work. Everything worked because the writer made it so. There's this all powerful being with a typewriter.
Yeah, it was very
Or
Deus Ex.
very Deus Ex. It reminds me of one of my absolute favorite Looney Tune cartoons. It's a Daffy Duck called A Muck Duck, and in it he starts making a cartoon, and the background changes. He says, "Okay, I guess we're doing a different movie now," and then he kind of gets into that, and then background changes again, and then he changes, and now he's a cowboy, and then he's some sort of like weird like flower creature, and all this stuff keeps happening, and he's just going bonkers like, what the fuck kind of movie are we making here, right? And things are just happening because the artist deems it so, and then it ends up being Bugs Bunny who's fucking with him the whole time, right? And it's a great ending, but it's a that cartoon, I think, does what Reese Waterfield was trying to do here, which is just make shit happen, right? But there was a purpose in A Muck Duck, and I don't see the purpose here. And I'm going to say that I don't see the purpose, not that there is no purpose, because I think I'm a smart guy, but I'm not the smartest man in the world, and I'm probably not even the smartest man in the room. So I'm going to go ahead and say that maybe I'm just not smart enough to get it. I don't think that's the case, but maybe.
But maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. You're right. There wasn't effective violence. There wasn't sexy nudity.
No.
Like you said, you get this one unexplained thing of this of the attractive girl in her bikini and stuff like that in the hot tub, but I didn't care that much about her. So it just, again, this is another area where you could have done something to try to make this movie something people want to remember for good reasons, and they just failed to do it here too.
Yeah, and this is normally the place where those points are made up.
Right.
When someone watches a movie and they're like, "Oh, that was fucking stupid," but at least the violence was brutal, right? There's that to look forward to, and if for whatever reason, like we mentioned Candyman, like with the new Candyman, I felt missed the mark in a lot of different places, but the story was a good one,
right?
Like that's kind of like, there needs to be a balance. It's very rare that you find a movie that is just, to take it back to British literature, like Mary Poppins, practically perfect in every way. It's damn near impossible to find like a Hereditary,
right?
Where it's like, this is not just perfect, this is beyond perfect, and that doesn't even make any fucking sense, right? This is like, wow, Anyway, that leaves us our rating.
Yeah.
And I have not considered a metric for this yet. Do you have anything? Because I'm sure we can come up with
Right.
something.
Look, I've thought of telepathic bee swarms. That was the one, just because that moment just came so out of left field. That was the one. That was one of the few times where, or not one of the few times. That was the time when I think I was the most confused in a movie that made so little sense. That was the moment where I was like, wait, what? Like, so telepathic bee swarms. Um,
I'm
you know,
down for that.
yeah, let's go telepathic bee swarms.
All right.
So,
So
look,
out of a possible 5, how many telepathic bee swarms do you give this?
man, like you said at the top, and like we've said multiple times when we make this show, I'm not one of those guys who is all about releasing some great hot take on the internet. Um, and or just just ripping something down because that's what I can do. It's easier to destroy than to build.
Mhm.
And so I'm never ever trying to be that guy. But man, I don't know that there's anything redeemable about this movie.
Mhm.
Like, I'm not even going to recommend that people watch this because it's like funny bad.
Right.
I'm not going to be like, "Oh, you got to see how stupid this is." No, like, I'll just tell you how stupid it is. And then if you want to put yourself through that 86 minutes, you can.
Also, like, I've got a hammer I can lend you. You can just go
Right.
to town on your balls for an
And
hour
so
and 25 minutes and come out feeling exactly the same.
I like I don't I don't want to do this. I really don't, but this is I think this is a 1. I think this is a 1 telepathic bee swarm. There's nothing redeeming here. I can't find a single thing to kind of to just check and be like, okay, yeah, they got me with that. Weak characters, weak storytelling. Even I can't even just chalk some. Like, I get that I'm not even docking it for the fact that they were just rubber masks. I am docking it for the fact that they then didn't appropriately use the rubber masks.
Right.
They could have avoided doing things that would have reminded me that it was a rubber mask, and they didn't even do that. So I gotta go 1 telepathic bee swarm, man.
So here's the thing. 0's a number. But I don't know if I want to set a precedent that we will give 0 out of anything.
Right.
Because here's the thing. Someone made an attempt. And me as a teacher, if you make an attempt, I never give you a 0.
Right.
Right. So that's the first reason that I'm not going to give a 0 out of 5 telepathic bee swarms. The second reason is logic, because that's an emotional reason. Logically, there was 1 telepathic bee swarm in the movie. And I feel like to say this movie gets 0 telepathic bee swarms is to ignore the idiocy of the 1 telepathic bee swarm we saw in the movie. So for the effort, which was a swing and a miss, and for the 1 telepathic bee swarm we actually saw in the movie, I'm going to give it 1.
Yeah. I mean, no way around it.
So it's a 1. Yeah.
Yeah. So there you have it, folks. Here at Shiver, the first unanimous 1.
Yeah.
For Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. It's not good. And if you've been listening, if you've been watching a long time, you know that Dave and I's metric for watchable and good aren't always the same thing.
Right.
But this movie is neither watchable nor good. It was just rough. So
do not recommend.
Do not no, not at all. Just listen here. This was a far better 80 minutes of your time, I guarantee. So we've had a couple people who have stuck with us the whole time. We appreciate y'all so much. If you think we're wrong, if you think that we are wrong and you loved something about this movie, let us know. You can head over to shiverpod.com. You will get links to all of our social media. We are on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. Instagram is where we are where we are the most active. It's been summer break. I've been trying to get back into working out. The Instagram's been faltering, but I'm working on bringing it back to a daily basis now. So we're going to get back there.
Had some good stuff lately.
I appreciate it. And as you can see, thanks to my mom, Fantastic Fan Fest is back in effect. We do have one guest lined up for next week. So we have got our friend Greg, who just kind of found us out there and has been real active on our Instagram. He wants to come on. So we are working on bringing on a movie with him. So we have got some ideas, but we don't have we'd like to do, 3 or 4 and just kind of keep them out there, get to meet some new people. So make sure you can email us at shiverpod@gmail.com. You can DM us on Instagram. That's how you're going to get a hold of us the best. Please let us know. The theme has been, with the exception of this one, the movie that got you into horror. That worked out real well for us last summer. Reach out to us. Let us know. We'd love to have you on. And we do have an announcement. It is official. We have booked plane tickets. We have booked a hotel. If you were in the Orlando or the Florida area, Dave and I are going to be at Spooky Empire in October.
Yes, we are.
At the Orlando Hyatt Regency, I believe.
Yes.
Is where it's being held. So if you love the show and you're going to be at Spooky Empire, make sure you let us know. We'd love to meet up and have a beer with you.
Absolutely. And make sure that if you are interested, you reach out to Spooky Empire and say, hey, why don't you give these two morons a panel so that we can argue and we can discuss with them why their take on, I don't know, something like Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey is absolutely correct.
Also,
so if your name is Mrs. Waterfield and you're very upset about what we had to say about your son's work today, I am more than happy to debate with you.
Yes, we absolutely will. And it's the 25th anniversary, I believe, of Spooky Empire. It's 20th or 25th or 30th. It's a big one, and they have got some banging names up there. So if you're in the Florida area and you don't know about Spooky Empire, go check them out, because they have announced that Greg Nicotero is going to be there, Tom Savini.
Oh yeah.
Rose McGowan's going to be there. V. Neal is going to be there.
Robert Englund.
Yeah, Robert Englund. Yes, Kane Hodder. Just the very beginnings of the guest list are already amazing. So make sure you check out Spooky Empire, and we will be there in October.
Absolutely. So on behalf of all of us here at Shiver, fright you very much.